I was feeling emotional on the way here.
Why?
Just thinking about this topic.
Dude, I don't want to talk about this topic.
I know you don't. It's just exactly why we're going to talk about it.
I know. I was
That's
like,
exactly why it's happening.
bleh.
She's already feeling sick.
Big topic. Let's take a deep inhale.
Okay.
Let it go. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 2 of the Humanhood series, brought to you by Casey Riley and
Melanie Peralta.
And Humanhood is all about humanizing this wild-ass human experience and making personal development
More personal.
And as we dive into today's topic, I'm going to be honest. When Melanie and I were talking about things we wanted to talk about, I did not want this one on the list.
I know.
I am uncomfortable.
That's why she needed the deep breath. Have you noticed she didn't do that with any other episode? Like, this is the one.
I know. And so, but that's what we're committed to. We're committed to having the difficult conversations, the conversations that push not only our edges, but also give other people an opportunity to explore their edges as
Absolutely.
well. And I think with this topic, it is one of the most important topics we can cover. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. So here we are, we're having the conversation, and let's get started.
Whew. Okay. Well, before we get started, I do want to shout out our sponsors, I Do Experiences. I know we talked about Desi in the season or series finale of last time, but this is I Do Experiences. It is the home of the Humanhood series. I'm so grateful that we've been able to use this space to bring our vision to life. I do a lot of events here. It was originally an elopement space when it started, officially rebranded to I Do Experiences, so you can bring absolutely any experience to life in this incredible space here in South Scottsdale. So shout out to our sponsors, I Do Experiences. Now let's really drop in. Okay, so I was telling Casey that we decided on this topic last week that we wanted to dive into this, and then just the way that life works, the rest of the week ended up being so much of that energy, of my motherhood energy, balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship and what to give to where and when and why and all those different things. So we obviously as women get to this point in your 30s when the concept of the biological clock starts knocking at your door like doof, 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 doof. And whether right now you have children already, you don't have children, you want them, or you don't know if you want them, there's so many factors that come into play when you're making that choice, and why you would make that choice, why you wouldn't make that choice. And one of the things that I think also contributes to some of the why is the relationships that we had with our parents growing up or our mothers growing up. So we're going to dive into all of those things today. Just where would you say that you're at in this space? Because I know we've talked about this at retreat. This has come up. We have a lot of women who are mothers at retreat. We also have a lot of women in our community who aren't and who are clear on that decision and why. Just based off of where you're at in your life, in your age, in your marriage, in your business, where are you at with the whole topic?
It's interesting, again, the timing of everything, because this weekend I was just at a baby shower for my dear friend from high school. She's one of my best friends. And my 2 best friends from high school are there, and they both have 3 children under 3. And so the whole topic of this like keeps coming up, and I'm surrounded by all these mothers, and like, what does that look like for me? And I think it's such an uncomfortable topic for me because I just don't know. I just don't know. And I feel like with a lot of things in my life, I've always been very certain.
Yeah.
Or open to exploring and being curious. But with something like this, you can't be open and explore and be curious. You either got to be committed and in it or not.
Yeah.
Because it's a lifelong decision. And it is such an important decision. You're not buying a car. You're not buying a house. Yeah. This is a lifelong commitment, and somebody else's life is in your hands. Yeah. And that is a lot of responsibility. Yeah. And going back to how we were raised in our relationships with our families, you know, my entire family, from what I remember, all of the women in my direct family were teen moms. All of them. And none of them ever had a partner involved. And so I observed a family of single mothers raising their children. And for me, it's like, I try to peel back the layers of like, why do I feel this way? And as I just observe just my upbringing, the beliefs and the stories that become created, it just had a major impact on my life. I feel like I saw children as being difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
And never like they were like, oh, you guys are difficult or it's a burden or anything. I never like heard that. I just saw it. Now, with all of this, I saw all of these women being super hardworking. Like they were like, I've got a family now. I'm taking care of them. And work was the priority because they were the sole provider for these children.
Yeah.
And again, I saw this with multiple women in my family. So for me, the beliefs that I took on was work's important. Money's important. Being safe is important. Having shelter and being provided for and being able to take care of yourself. And the kids was almost like something that was just there. It was never a conscious choice of like, I love you, let's start a family.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for me, I feel like that's kind of where the beliefs and the conditioning started and what's causing a lot of the confusion with me. And I also know a lot of people who have been in that same environment growing up and they're like, and I want kids and like, I want to do it right. For me, I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this because I've never seen like a conscious family become like a family.
Yeah.
And I say conscious by choice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just something that I have desires for, but then I don't. And it's just like this back and forth. And for me, like it's such an important decision that I want to be certain in that decision.
Totally.
So
What's your age again?
34.
You're 34. Okay. And does Brian want kids?
You know, I don't want to speak for Brian in this conversation.
Yeah.
But I will say that Brian was raised in a beautiful family. To him, like it was mom, dad, brother, grandparents. Like you call your grandparents. You call your parents every day. Like to this day, they still do.
Yeah.
And family is important to him. And he grew up in a very healthy, stable family where everything was a conscious choice.
Yeah.
And so his upbringing was very different. And I think that it's important to understand the different dynamics in relationships.
Totally.
Because everyone has a different upbringing.
Yeah. 1000%. So what is it about your current life situation now? Because what you just explained about what you saw growing up and what the circumstances are and things like that, that is so polar opposite as to what your current life experience is and what automatically the experience for if you ever did bring life into the world, it would already be in a totally different experience. What is it about the past experience that you have and the reality that you're currently living that somehow it's like, even though this is the reality that's in front of me right now and I know I wouldn't be creating any of that, why is it that I can't, like, the reality that's in front of me isn't impacting that choice more than the past?
Well, I think that's like kind of what all my work is about, right? It's like cognitively I know these things.
Right.
But the programs and somatically and all the things that are stored in our bodies from generations, sometimes that overrides what your cognitive mind knows as true.
Yeah.
Because I know this.
Yeah.
You know, I have the ideal situation.
Totally.
And it's still like, why are those beliefs still there? Why is it so strong? And then I have to come back and give myself some grace. And it's like, dude, that's all you've seen.
Yeah.
Especially in those formative years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my cognitive mind knows, like, this is not the situation. It would be so very different. But those beliefs are still in there.
Yeah.
And then as you mentioned, like this whole biological clock thing and just the societal pressures. First off, I don't subscribe to any of that.
Do people ask you though? Like
yes.
all the time?
All the time.
Okay.
And I'm just like, I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
I know people in their 40s having children.
Totally.
Healthy children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there is, I'm a healthy woman.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be a problem. But yeah. And so just like the societal pressures as well, where it's like, is this what I really want? Or is this what everyone else is doing? So I think it's what I want.
Totally.
And so there's a lot of layers there to unpack. And it's just such an important decision that I will not make lightly.
Yeah.
For the sake of everyone involved.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's a handful of friends that I have that are just so certain, like, children are not for me. Like, I love being a Thea. I love being, this person, the godmother, but it's just like, I'm so fine with never doing that.
Yeah.
Like multiple friends.
Yeah.
For me, the question that I've asked one of my other best friends who's in the same exact situation as you is like, I don't know. Like, I know I'd be a great mom if I did have them. And I know I'd do a great job. And, her and her partner would be amazing parents and they'd love that baby more than anything in the world. But she's still so undecided if it's right for her. Mm-hmm. And the question that I always ask to people is like, if at the very end of your life or when you're in your old age, if you did or did not choose to build a family of your own and have your own children, do you think that you would really be okay with that? Like, can you imagine yourself as an old woman, in your 70s, 60s, 70s, whatever, and you decided not to have children? Do you feel like you would genuinely be happy with that? Or later in life, would you feel like, damn, I should have did that?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because people can think that way, have children, and then their children cannot be involved in their life at the end of their life.
Totally. That's so true. It's so true.
It's not like a given that you're going to have this happy family and then when you're old, your kids are going to come feed you soup when you're ill.
Yeah.
That's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
And so when you ask that, it's like, sure, in my perfect world, would I have this incredible family where everyone loves each other and like we're all together until the end and there's no generational trauma and no issues? Like, of course. But that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. I think though, like when we go back to conscious parenting, like choosing consciously, a lot of the dynamics that we see these days that aren't where the kids aren't in their lives or, they're a lot of those things were unconscious parenting or unconscious building a family dynamic. I am that delusional one. I'm like, I'm gonna have the most beautiful, abundant, happy, loving, connected family. Yeah. And I have like absolute certainty in that. Yeah. 1,000, even though that's not exactly what I come from. I mean, I'm Mexican. We love hard. We're dysfunctional, but we love hard. And I'm not saying that for all Mexicans. I'm saying that for my family. Like, our family's dysfunctional, but we love so hard. We never lacked love. Mm-hmm. We lacked a lot of things, but love is not one of them. Yeah. And so for me, especially, I do have a kid. And I had a kid on accident. Yeah. Shout out to my son, Bukai. He's about to be 10. He's the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. And in my life, in my human world, it was an accident because it wasn't a decision that we made on purpose, but it was by divine design. I was meant to be his mom and he was meant to be my son and he was meant to come into my life when he did, which I was 21 when I got pregnant. Yeah. Girl. Which is really funny because when I was a teenager and I was 13 and I thought 21 was so old, I always said, yeah, I'm going to have my first kid at 21, thinking that was like old. And then when I was 21, I was like, oh shit, I'm still a baby. Yeah. But I grew up really fast. And honestly, by the time I was 21, I was like very, very mature over my party phase because I started partying really young and all that stuff. But I am one of those people that truly does believe that I can have the happy family and I can see me raising my grandbabies. And people ask me, what is your greatest dream in life? Like, what is your greatest goal? And I'm like, I want to be a nana. Not That is my greatest goal in life.
Yeah.
When I think about at the end of my life, if there was anything that I did or accomplished or had at the end of my world, what would it be? And maybe like certain amount of years ago, when people ask me that question, I always said I want a multi-million-dollar personal brand to where I could do anything and have access to any resources to bring any idea to life in any way that I want and have it be successful.
Yeah.
You know, that was my goal. That was my life dream at the time. Then I'm like, well, if I really get to the end of my life and I have that, but I don't have this, I don't have this type of family that I want, I'm going to probably be really sad about that, you know?
Yeah.
I see myself with like all these grandchildren.
Yeah.
Like Nana Mel, I see her right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe that's because I had the most amazing Nana ever in the world.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a mom growing up. You know, I was raised by a single father. For those of you guys who've been watching, you know that my dad raised me. But I think that's also a part of my thing is that I grew up not seeing great motherhood. And not just from my own mom, but from a lot of the women in my family. You know, other than my Nana, but even like my cousins, my first cousins, my Nana raised my cousins because their mom was on drugs. And a lot of where I come from, the mothers are on drugs or dysfunctional and they don't raise their children.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up around.
Well, and it's interesting because some people will take that and say, that's why I don't want to have kids.
Right.
But you have the exact opposite.
Totally.
You take that and say, that's exactly why I love children.
Yeah.
And I want to change the generations to come because I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And I want to provide that.
Yeah.
And so it's just so fascinating to me that people can have the same experience and make a completely different decision based on that experience.
1000%. It's just all about how we're processing it. But then I think it also is like there's nuances to the experience, right? Because I am the oldest of 6 kids with my mom. So when I was little and I would go visit my mom regularly on the weekends, I would go to my hometown. I had such an attachment to my siblings. I felt such a deep responsibility for them. I was like, I have to take care of them. I have to try to keep them as safe as possible. Like I felt this relentless devotion as a kid, dude. Yeah. I was like 7, 8, 9, all these like young years feeling like I have to fill this gap in their life. When I show up, they know they're safe. When I show up, they know they're taken care of. They know we're going to do something, you know? And so I think because I got to experience what it was like to provide a certain type of energy for children who needed it in that way, it was so fulfilling for me as a kid. Yeah, like I would save my money up and I'd have my $20. I'd go to my hometown and I had $20. I was like so rich back then. And my mom was notorious for like sneaking out of the house, like sneaking away. So it was kind of one of those things that was like, you got to keep your eye on her. Otherwise she's like sneaking out the back door, or like going somewhere and you don't know when she's coming back. Yeah. So I would take my money and get my siblings in like a little wagon and pull them across. And my sister, some of us would be walking and we'd go across town into the old pizza place in my hometown. And with my $20, I would like buy all of us pizza and take us out for pizza. So I have those memories in there of stepping into the nurturing feminine role and seeing the joy and the happiness and the bliss that it brought to their lives. So I have positive associations with it, you know?
Well, my experience was that devotion, but to myself, because my mom was so busy working, providing us truly a great life. We had to start doing everything very young ourselves. Like we were making ourselves lunch and dinner and doing our own laundry and helping around the house and doing all these things. And so what I started to do, because I started saving my money too, and then I eventually started paying for everything at a young age. And they're like, why are you paying for this stuff? And I'm like, because I need to take care of myself. I need to take a load off of this human.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so what
Okay.
can I do to make everyone's life so much easier? I will just take care of myself so no one has to take care of me. And so everything that you poured into your siblings, I was taking on this belief of like doing it for myself.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of where who I am now comes from, where obviously I love being generous and helping other people and like things like that, but it's like still almost this borderline survival mode. It feels like where it's like no one else is going to take care of me, so I got to make sure I take care of me, and that means I can't take care of other people.
Oh, okay. I'm loving that we're unpacking this right now because it's making, because you and I are so different in this way. And I love that. I love that about our dynamic. That's one of my favorite things about doing this series with you is like we can approach these topics from such different perspectives. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I wasn't in that space because I was raised by my dad. My dad was my protector. He was my provider. All of my needs were met. I was not in survival at all with my dad. And so, yeah, I had the capacity as a girl, little kid, to go to my hometown and show up in that way with my money that my dad gave me and or like, you know, and have the capacity. So I think there's also something to it there of having the masculine presence embedded in your being to help create that safety and stability aspect too. And it doesn't mean that it always has to come from a man, but just that masculine energy that's like you're protected, you're provided for, you're safe. And I did have that.
Yeah, we did not have that. And then when my stepdad came into our life, things obviously it was like a breath of fresh air because there was another person there, that masculine energy to kind of shift the dynamic a little bit. But up in those formative years, it was not like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just really interesting, like, because I could sit here and say all this surface things, right? People say, like, kids are expensive and, like, they're time-consuming and all these things. But I'm like, that's just the surface stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what's really going on underneath these, like, excuses?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
And, yeah, and it's like the way that we raise people. And I think that brings up another point where it's the fear of raising a traumatized child. Like the fear of the generational trauma continuing. You know? Like I'm kind of in that right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would I want that to continue? And my sister's had children, and she's like the best mom ever. She is the most incredible woman ever. She has 2 grown kids, and she is not far from my age.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's like the best relationship with her kids, and they just have this incredible bond. And like I've seen her like push past that and break that and like really do it. So I know that it's possible, but it's also a lot of responsibility.
Do you not trust yourself?
I feel the reason behind it. I trust myself and the way that things have played out recently. I never thought that was going to happen
What do you mean?
with my family dynamic right now.
Okay.
I never thought that was going to happen because I thought we all had like worked through that, and I was like, that won't happen. And it did. So I can trust myself all day long, but if there's something like greater, like this real generational trauma that is like stronger than what I can do as a human, yeah, that concerns me.
I think I look at it from the difference of, do you want to give them a little bit more details of what you're talking about? If you don't, it's okay.
No.
Okay. So I think the way that I look at it is more so from the perspective of you're on the other end of experiencing something that is out of your control entirely. There's a big difference between being on the other end of something that is out of your control and then being on the direct end of everything that is in your control.
Yeah.
You know?
You're right.
That's the difference. So like for me, my mom was a drug addict. She's still an alcoholic. She had 6 kids. She's very poor. And I have made every conscious choice my entire life as a woman and a mother to not be any of those things. And I haven't. But Kai has never seen me drunk. And I drink. He's never seen me high. And every now and then I smoke. He has never seen me in danger. He has never seen me out of my mind. He's never been exposed to anything that I've ever been exposed to. And all of that was in my control. Obviously, the world is the world, and he experiences things in the world because he already got exposed to pornography.
I remember that.
Which was very heart-shattering,
Yeah.
soul-shattering. I did an entire live on that for those of you who are watching. And if any of you guys are going through that with your children, and it's a really hard thing to talk about, I did an entire live on that on my Instagram where I shared about exactly how I moved through that in depth. But same thing, it was like, okay, that was out of my control. But this is in my control. It's like how I support him through processing what he saw and why it's not okay, and doing my best to not create any shame or guilt around that or make that a traumatic experience, you know? So the reason why I ask, do you trust yourself, is because when we do know that something is in our power and in our control, it's either the full trust or the lack of trust that has us move forward. Just like in business. It's like, I trust myself that I can hold that vision and that no matter what happens, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
We do that in business.
Well, and that's the thing. I have that certainty and trust in every other area in my life. So maybe I don't. Maybe I don't trust myself,
That's
you
what I'm saying.
in this specific area.
Yeah.
Because everything else, and that's I think where the confusion comes from, because I am so certain in 99% of my life.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this, it probably is the lack of trust.
Yeah. And it's so funny too, because like we have like our dog moms. Casey's the dog mom.
Dog moms are real. We matter.
No, honestly, this might sound crazy to some of y'all. I would so much rather raise children than be a dog mom.
Are you kidding?
Yes.
Why?
First of all, do not come for me. I like dogs.
If you're not a dog person, don't even say it, because this could end a friendship.
I like dogs, but I don't love dogs.
Yeah.
Like people, they see a dog and they're like, oh my God, a dog. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
You know, like some dogs, like your dogs are really cute. There's other dogs that I don't think are cute.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And so some people are just like, I love dogs. And I'm like, I like some dogs. I love certain dogs. There's definitely been dogs that I've loved. But I'm not just like this hardcore dog lover, okay? I'm just not. And so, but for me, having a dog is like
disgust on your face right now, Melanie.
Before a child, like to me, that dog is a liability forever. It can never do anything for you. A child can eventually get up and make you a meal, bro. Like,
but dogs they don't live till they're 100.
I
They
know,
live
but
until they're 10 to 15.
I know, but you literally have to do everything for them their entire life.
Not really, though, because you can leave them at home. You just put their food down and they eat. They take themselves out to go shit. It's actually not that hard.
Okay, you have a doggy door?
No.
I guess, okay, well, I don't know. I think about people who, like, they have to revolve their lives around walking their dogs and helping their dogs
You
poop.
have to revolve around picking your son up from school and dropping him off
That's
at
true.
X, Y, and Z.
That's true, but I guess the way that I look at it is I was like, my child feels so much more fulfilling than a dog.
Have you ever owned a dog?
No, actually, yeah. Me and my dad owned dogs we'd owned dogs growing
Okay.
up, but I was a teenager. I was like living my own life. I wasn't like home chilling with my dog.
I will say, dogs are the best thing in this world. I actually was in this might be a little embarrassing, but I was in a breathwork session the other day. Like,
cried
in
about
my
your
own.
dog?
I was sobbing over Frankie baby, the little white one, because he's getting old and he's so healthy. Like, he just got his blood work done. He is so healthy.
Yeah.
But I saw his face and I was sobbing because I know at some point in the future he will not be here. And I was like, my life is going to be so hard without him because I love him so much.
Yeah.
Like, the love for my dogs are so real.
Yeah.
Like, it is a real thing.
Yeah.
And so
I get it.
Yeah.
Obviously, but from the perspective of birthing out the human and the creature that I love.
Yeah.
You know, and I look at you and I'm like, you're such an amazing dog mom. Like, I'm like, how would you not trust yourself with children if you treat your dogs that well?
I know.
You know, I heard this conversation, this guy was saying the people out there, the ones who are like so concerned to have kids because they know how much of a responsibility they are. And they're like in this mind, like, should I do this? I want to do it right. And he's like, those are the people who should be having kids because they care so much. All not the other people who are just fucking around and making babies or like whatever, you know. It's usually those are the people who don't always take the greatest care of their kids because they didn't do it intentionally. They didn't put that much care and thought into it. It just happened and they just ended up in those situations. Yeah. You know? Which goes into, I was gonna make a reel about this because I feel really passionate about this.
Okay.
I feel like I'm a very would you say I'm a non-judgmental human being?
Can I be honest?
Yeah. Please. Am I?
You say that?
But you think I am?
But we can all spot each other's
judgments.
And so you claim you don't have a zero judgmental bone in your body, and I would say that that's false.
I mean, of course we make judgments, but I don't usually look at somebody and make a judgment and be like, that's not okay or that's bad. The one judgment that I did tell you that I always have is like if you're bad to children.
Right.
That's the one judgment. Like, I do think you're a bad person.
Totally.
1000%. But I was saying that because
I think I'm a judge. Well, actually.
I'm like, am I specifically judging about like one thing or like Jesus? But if I am ever going to be like just blatantly judgmental, it is towards women who are not good moms. Like women who blatantly don't pour into learning how to even be a better parent.
But there's like so many definitions. Like in your eye, what is your definition of a good mom?
I guess that's a great question because for me, because of what I went through, my idea of a bad mom is probably like way more on the extreme end of like if you're on drugs and you just abandon your kid.
Right.
Like to me, that's not being a good mom.
Totally.
You know, but for me, it's more so like it's not necessarily in all the nuances of what you feed your kid, because there's a lot of moms out there who are just in their situation and they got to feed their kids what they got to feed their kids, you know, but you love your kid and you're there and you're invested into them and you care and all that stuff. But for me, it's more so like I see women who have children and then they don't take care of them. Like they literally don't raise their children. Like they have their kid and now the kid lives with the grandparents and the mom's off like living their life.
Yeah.
I could never be friends with a woman who has children that she doesn't raise if she's out gallivanting in life.
I've never really witnessed that.
Really? No. Oh, it's a huge thing. Like in my hometown, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of women who have kids and then don't raise their children.
Yeah, I've never really witnessed that because even though the people in my family like were young moms, they were always like taking care of their kids. Like they were I'm not letting you sink, you know?
Oh,
like,
no. I saw the opposite.
Oh, yeah. So when you say that, I'm like, what do you mean?
Oh, dude, no.
Like, I know men do that, but I don't really.
Women do it too.
Okay.
A lot of women do it too. And I think because I grew up seeing it so much and because I was one of those kids, I'm like, nah, bro.
Yeah.
I can't. That's where I draw the line.
I would hope so.
Because, you know, then there's the conversations of like, oh, well, you're a coach, Mel, and like you should, yes, I want to help people and try to make people be better and stuff like that. But to me, it's like if you're in your situation and maybe you were in a bad situation and you got your kids taken away from you, which I've seen a lot of that as well. Technically, I got taken away from my mom. Yeah. Technically. And then you're working to get your life together so that you can get your kids back. and be a good mom and be healthy and provide a stable, loving, high quality environment for them, that's different. But if you're out there just like partying on the weekends and just living your best life and like your kids live with a relative, I can't do it.
Yeah. I don't have experience with that.
I was gonna make a reel about it because I know women like that who I see on social media and I know where their kids are.
So were you gonna make that reel out of like a passive aggressive like post to express yourself?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't make it because I was gonna say, I'm like, listen, like there's a lot of shit that I could love you through, but like being an absent, not good mom, like I can't be your friend. I'm sorry.
God, I'm not sorry.
I'm so sorry. But that's why I do respect people like you and people like some of our other friends who are so mindful of that choice. Yeah. Because some of my friends are just like, they're very honest that I just want to be selfish. I just want my life to be all about me.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to sacrifice so many things for another life. They're like, I just don't. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? More power to you, boo.
Yeah.
If you're certain in that, 1000%.
Right. And I would say one of my like values is freedom. Definitely. Like when you say at the end of your life, like you want to be surrounded by a bunch of children and grandchildren, I want to live a very free life. And I know that you can still do that with families. But that's like what I enjoy doing and what makes me, I feel like this whole episode we had little like, my hair's caught, you hit go. Got a burp. Freedom is like my big thing.
Yeah.
And so as long as freedom can remain, and I always like kind of say this too, I'm like, once the Rileys, like my in-laws, move next door, the door opens a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to do stuff alone.
Yeah.
I don't. And even if there is 2 people involved, that's not enough.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I want help. I want support. I even told my sister, I was like, you can move in with me for 2 months. Yeah. Like literally.
Yeah.
You know, because I require that.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is like selfish, like needing to take care of myself, but that's important to me.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
You know, and so I think that it is important to not put yourself in situations that are going to overstress you or overwork you if you can create a life that will be more supportive for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, why not be more mindful in those decisions? It doesn't have to be stressful the way that you observed it. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's just more so about realizing what my true needs are if this does happen and how can we make that happen, because it's important to me that I maintain a sense of self, a sense of freedom, a sense of wellness, well-being, so that I can show up for other people. You know, and I know it's not always going to be that way. And like you say that now and then it's like fucking chaos. Yes, I get that. But if there are ways to like mitigate some of that, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? If you have the tools and the resources and the people there, why not?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know.
Well, that also kind of goes into the whole thing of like business. If you have like your dreams and your goals and you're like, that's what I want to prioritize. And then the whole concept of people thinking that, you know, well, if I have kids, when I was at the conference a couple weeks ago, the woman who threw the conference, she's incredible. Shout out to Brittany Hahn. I love you, boo, if you're watching this. She has her daughter, Pepper. Her and her she never wanted kids. And then they had Pepper. And Pepper's homeschooled. She is a phenomenal human, bro. Like,
how old is she?
I think she's 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Pepper's 10, or around that age. And they homeschool her. They take her everywhere they go. The mom and the dad do, John and Brittany. And if anything, like, Pepper has not hindered her dreams or her goals or her visions or anything at all. It's made her want to go even harder. Yeah. And I think that's also a big conversation that comes up for people. It's like, well, I want to do this and I have these aspirations. And the story from society that people have told women for a long time is that once you have a baby, it's over.
Yeah.
And that's so not true, because for me, it was the complete opposite. Once I had my son, I was like, I could do anything.
Yeah.
I could take over the world. And then I did.
Yeah.
And like Vakai is the reason why I started throwing women's events. If I did not have him, I would probably still be in LA trying to make music, and who knows, I would not be influencing thousands of people over the world over the past few years or past 5 years, you know? And well, technically more than that, but that's like a big, going back to trusting yourself and choice. We get to choose what we do. And with all of that being said, I never thought I was going to be a single mom. That was not a part of my plan. Even though Vakai wasn't planned, his dad and I were very much in love when he was conceived, and we were living together in LA. His dad moved out there to North Hollywood to live with me because we were so in love. And so when we found out that I was pregnant, we were like, we were excited. We were like, it was like a hell yeah, we're having a baby. It wasn't like a fuck, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
It was like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And it was happy, it was blissful, it was excitement, you know? And I wanted to build my family with that person. And I thought that that's what it was gonna be, you know? But then it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. And I did become a single mom. And again, I never, ever saw that for myself, ever. But even in that, it's like that showed me my capacity and my capability. And right now where I'm at in my single mom entrepreneur life, and I talked about this on my story a little bit, is like the balance between how much time and energy, how much of my capacity goes towards motherhood and how much of my capacity goes towards my goals and my dreams and my visions and my business. And I think I mentioned this to you before, is like right now I am sacrificing a little bit of my bigger picture visions because I know what they're going to require of me. And because I am a single mom with Vakai and his dad lives hours away, I don't just have access to a co-parent 24/7. I'm like, I'm going to wait on that, or I'm going to, you know, maybe just do a little bit of this now, because majority of my energy needs to go into my motherhood.
Yeah.
And making sure that I am being present and patient and graceful and available. Because there's definitely been times in my life, especially at the peak of working for Tony and Dean, where I wasn't available, like as available, you know? And so that's also a big thing too, is like, yeah, there are going to be certain sacrifices, but this is so important, and this is so crucial for any parents who are listening out there. One thing that hits me so deep in my soul when it comes to parenting and raising children is you never know who you're raising. You never know who you are raising. My dad, he did not know that his daughter was going to grow up and positively impact thousands of people all over the world. He didn't know that, but he changed his life. He got out of prison. He stopped doing drugs. He stopped drinking. He changed his entire life to be my parent at the highest level, and showed up so powerfully that he influenced the core of my being and raised me to be the woman that I am today. And he has no idea that he had no idea back then that his choices to be a present dad, to be a powerful, sober dad, would have this much of a ripple effect. So that's another thing too.
But that goes for the other like end of the spectrum too. Like those people who aren't devoted and so committed to changing their life. There's a lot of people who are not like us running around this world. There are bad people out there. There are traumatized people who are hurting other people. And it's like, it's such a responsibility.
See, you're right. I agree with you. And this is what I tell people. everybody complains about how many bad people there are in the world and all these fucked up humans and all this stuff, but who's raising them? Somebody's raising them. All these people who are committing crimes and doing all these, things for whether just because they're bad people or because they're in survival or they're programming, whatever, somebody raised them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I look at it from the perspective of, well, everyone complains that there's not enough good people in the world. Well, then I raise my hand and I take on the job of raising good people for this planet. That is something that I'm committed to. Because it's like, yeah, there's all these messed up people. Well, if we just decide to stop having children because we're so afraid to contribute to the fucked up collective or the fucked up, percentage of humanity, then what do you think is going to happen? Mm-hmm. If people like us are like, oh, well, I don't want to contribute to that. It's like, well, somebody has to produce powerful, potent people to go out in the world and spread sparkly magic. I sign up for that job. Like, because, dude, I am so proud of the creation that I've created so far, and he's barely about to be 10. Yeah. I'm like, if I made 10 more of you, you know how amazing this world would be? Bakai's going to grow up, and he is going to have so much magic to spread with the world because I chose to be his mom in the way that I chose to be his mom. And that's just how I look at it. I'm passionate about it. I'm like, let's save humanity. Let's have a bunch of babies and raise them awesomely. That's what I think.
I love that you think that way. I love that for you. I did listen to, you touched on this earlier, and I was listening to this podcast. It was with Lori Harder.
Okay.
And David Guyham.
Okay. I think I saw some snippets of that.
Yeah, it was a great conversation because she's kind of like in my situation,
totally.
Right? Like, I don't know. And he said that a lot of people are concerned that a child will take from you. It's going to take your money. It's going to take your time. It's going to take everything. But it really just elevates what you already have. It's like money. It's only going to enhance who you already are. Mm. So if you're already a hard worker, it's going to have you work harder. If you already have money, you're going to make more money. Like, it only enhances what you already have. And then the thing that he asked her, which kind of hit me in the soul, was he said, we always think it's about us, right? I don't know if I want this. He said, you will know if there's actually a little soul up there who's saying, like, wants to come down to you. Like, it's not necessarily your choice. It's this stronger choice that's like, hello. And when he said that, I got chills because that landed for me because I did feel something. And so when I thought about it like that, it's like, we're so selfish. I can be so selfish with my thoughts and it's my choice and I'm the only one in this decision. But actually, if you think about the magnitude of it and from that perspective, imagine all your 3 kids above you, we're ready, Melanie. We're ready, Mom. You know what I mean?
I'm like, where's my husband?
Yeah. But it's actually not even really in your control.
Yeah.
When there's something, there's a child up there who's just waiting for the ticket ride in. Here we go. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so when I heard that, it really shifted my idea around this because I realized, maybe it's not even up to me. And I trust that.
Yeah.
I trust that whatever's meant to happen will happen, whether it's now or I'm 48.
Yeah.
I have full faith that everything will happen when it should, if it should.
Totally.
And so I do love that we're having this conversation because those conversations that you heard and that I heard, it was bringing this new perspective. And it's just important, especially nowadays, with women where, and whatever you believe, and we'll probably touch on this later with the conspiracies, but pushing the agendas,
yeah.
right? Where did this dynamic shift when women no longer wanted to be home with their family? They wanted to be at work, and is that okay? And is that normal? And all of the things, and is there a bigger agenda behind it? It goes down to trust. It goes down to trust and knowing yourself so well.
Yeah.
And knowing that you can have all of the things And there will be seasons, like we talked about last episode, where things might feel harder or easier or whatever. But it's a conversation that needs to be had right now because there's so much confusion because of so many narratives going around.
Totally. I think another thing too is, like you said, going back to the trust, but one of our favorite things to say is like a part of the humanhood experience is you get to change your mind.
Yeah.
You get to change your mind. And so just feeling free in the choice that you're in right now, and whatever that is, whether you feel like you want children right now and then you go through a certain year in business and you're like, actually, I kind of like it here. I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you're crushing it in business and you're building your brand and all that stuff. And then maybe you just want to be a mom, you know, and allowing yourself to not feel shame or guilt for being in any of those spaces. Yeah. Because I go through that. Yeah. I go through like feeling a little bit guilty sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like when I went to RGC, right? There was so many amazing things came up for me through that experience. But one of them was like, I know how massive I am. I know how much I can be doing because I've done so much before. And so the question is like, are you playing small right now? And then I'm like, no, I'm not playing small because I'm not hiding or anything, or like, I'm just focused on what's most important to me right now. And I was having a conversation with one of the girls, because you know, you leave a conference like that and you're like super inspired. You're like, I want a total rebrand. I'm going to rebuild this business and I'm going to do this. And you're like in that. And for me, I'm like, do I want to pour all of my energy into this right now? Or do I want to continue pouring energy into parenthood? And is that, you know, am I playing small? Which I already had the conversation. I was like, no, you're not playing small. But at the time it was like, are you over here? Because you could be making this business and scaling it to multi-million dollars and all these different things that our industry tells us that we could be doing. So we should be doing, especially if people view us in a certain way. Yeah. You know?
And you know your potential.
Totally.
That's the tough thing too, where it's like you said, am I playing small? Like, I know I could be doing all these things.
Know what I'm capable of.
Yeah, that's the thing for me where it's like, oh, damn.
Yeah. But again, going back to what I said earlier, is like, you never know who you're raising. Yeah. And so I think about that and I'm like, my child is my contribution to society. My contribution to society. And he's my legacy beyond my business, you know? So for me, I have already made the choice. 1000% I'm prioritizing my majority of my capacity to go into my parenting, because at the end of my life, that's going to be the thing that I'm like, if I did this right, I could die in peace. Yeah. Like if I raised my child right, or my children right, then that's the thing that I feel like I had a successful existence. So finding that balance, choosing accordingly to what's right for you and what season of life you're in, and just owning that and not feeling guilty for either or, and not feeling pressured, because like one person could be pressured to have kids and then one person could be pressured to, you know, go harder in business or whatever the pressure is. Just like dropping into your personal values. Yeah. Your personal values is what will really lead the way in those answers. And
peeling back your own layers. Yeah. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's so many surface excuses and reasons, not only for this, but everything in life. Yeah. Like why you're not doing this or why you're behaving this way. But there's always a root behind it. So like go back. Where did this belief start? And start to unpack it, because that will make you have a healthier choice and decision around it versus just using all these surface level excuses. Totally. So that has been a really fun journey for me to unpeel with this conversation. So thank you for pushing me to have it. But if this message is really landing with anyone out there, please let us know.
Yeah, send us a message. Like, if
Yeah.
you want to dive deeper into this, if you relate to Casey, if you relate to me and you're in that space, we know that this pressure is here.
And
it's hovering, dude.
It's hovering. It's like this cloud. But with this topic specifically, there's so much shame around it.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard to have conversations around it because it's like, I feel a type of way and I don't know if it's right or wrong. Send us a message.
Yeah.
We're here to listen. We're here to just let you have a space to chat it out, especially around this topic.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. We love you so much. And stay tuned to where if I end up having 3 more children and
by the end of the series,
Casey gets 5 more dogs. We love you guys. Until next time. Bye.